I originally came here and I was going to share some stories similar to the ones that the moms have shared. I've been teaching for 15 years in the state of Texas. I'm a mother of 2 school-age children, and after hearing them, I decided they pretty much told my story. And I would like to tell you that at the beginning of every single year, teachers are taught, we're trained on recognizing bullying in the schools. And I'm telling you right now that I am a state-employed school bully. At this point, I'm a 6th grade math teacher. 55% of my TEKS changed this year. 55%. Some went down to the 3rd grade. So when the good on-level 5th graders walked into my room this year, in some cases 3 years behind. So now I'm teaching 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. Let's stick in some 6th grade, which brought down some algebra from the 9th, 8th, and 7th grade. And these 6th graders are expected to do this. You might say I'm kind of overblown in what I say, but according to the National Bullying Prevention Center, although some definitions definitely vary from place to place, an action is defined as bullying when the behavior hurts or harms another person physically or emotionally. Check. These kids are checked out. They are upset. They're crying. There have been 2 suicides in my 8th grade class where my daughter at that school. Not necessarily because of testing, but there's something wrong with that group of kids. They're stressed. It's real. The second indication is that the target has a difficulty stopping the behavior directed at them. They struggle to defend themselves. Check. How does a student defend themselves against the state of Texas who's doing this to them? How can they stand up for themselves? All they can do is go home and tell mom and dad, who are equally frustrated. Then they can act out in class. Many definitions include for bullying an imbalance of power. That's described when the person exhibiting the bullying behavior has more power, either physically, socially, emotionally. Check. There's nothing more intimidating to a 6th grader or a kid in general than being told, we're going to have to cut your sports this year. I'm sorry. Or, go ahead and, tell your coach you can't make practice, you need to go to tutoring. Or fear, especially at that age, of being picked on by other kids because they're seen as unintelligent, or a loss of intelligence somehow randomly over the summer. And the last part is intent. There is intent. You are intending to make this more rigorous, which is a good goal. It's very adult-centered. It's not very kid-centered. It's a great goal. And I take a little bit of an issue with the person that said that their goal was to meet up with Common Core. And then the very next sentence he said was that the highest achieving state dropped their standards to Common Core. And then he wants us to meet it. I don't understand. Is it good or is it bad? Stop the bullying. That's all I have to say.
And so you're a 6th grade teacher in which school district?
Bastrop.
Bastrop, okay.
Yes.
So Ms. Davis, as far as in terms of teacher preparation in service, what sort of teacher preparation did you have ahead of this implementation as a 6th grade teacher?
I've had a lot, and before I was a 6th grade teacher, I was a 5th grade teacher, so I've had that high stress level of gotta pass, and if you don't, it's, prep again, pass it again, no, 3rd time, summer school, and I have been that summer school intervention teacher for 8 years running in a previous district. So I've seen, and I actually like teaching the struggling learner. More so, I feel I'm better with that. And so I've been to the Service Center, Region 13, on several occasions. I have embraced the lead forward documents and all that that entails, and looking at the side-by-sides, and I knew in advance it was coming, but just because you know a train wreck is coming in advance doesn't mean you can avoid it. You can brace yourself for impact, but it's still going to impact you. It just will. And it's not so much that data, getting data is a very adult thing. Kids don't care about that. Parents kind of care if somebody says that the data is used in a certain way. They should care because it's used to preclude their child from something in the next year. It's not the data that we get, and it's not the lessons that we have to teach. I was very disappointed to hear people say, how much training these teachers need, and they just don't understand it, because the teachers understand it. What we don't know how to do is to make 3rd graders understand it. There's so much in there built in, especially in math, to understand some of these concepts. It's not that the teachers don't know. They're very well aware of what it takes. It's just fitting it all in. I'm having to teach my 6th graders. Luckily, my district has a wonderful way of implementing this, and I'm kind of given free rein to remediate in a certain way. I'm literally teaching a remedial math class to my 6th graders to fill in those gaps that I would love for the 5th grade teachers to have taught. But the reality of it is, whoa, with last year's standards, these kids didn't get it. So after the STAR test was over, these kids didn't get a lesson in what's coming to fill in the gaps for 6th grade. They got remediation to try to pass it a second time. And then a fewer students got it again and then came into the summer. And some of them still didn't even pass last year's STAR test. So the reality is, while I would love for the 5th grade teacher, they knew what they had to do. And as a 6th grade teacher, without that pressure of retesting and retesting, I was able to teach a few things to last year's 6th graders to prepare them for the 7th grade, knowing full well I was not going to get the benefit of that from the 5th graders incoming. And it's not those teachers' fault. I know what they're going through. And I have a 5th grader this year. I'm very scared.
Yeah, and to follow up, and you've read some of those documents, and so if I'm hearing you correctly, that you understand this is that once the thing is finally there, and then the system balances back out, that it's probably a good thing. But the problem is that we really stand to have a lot of students slip through the cracks in this.
Oh, absolutely.
And the thing about it is that with mathematics, that if that student ever has a gap in their skill set moving forward, it's very, very difficult because that affects future learning.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you believe should happen?
My perfect little happy teacher land, what I believe should have happened is that they started in kindergarten and kind of said, okay, with this group of kids, let's help y'all. But and then it would progressively go on instead of coming into 6th grade as a 5th grader and saying, oh, I never learned that and I'm never going to. That's kind of rough because it's in the future. But right now, we have to find a way to help the children. Yes, I know teachers need help figuring it out. Some of the math concepts are above what their level of teaching experience is, but teachers can get it. They're all college educated. They're going to get it. They'll catch on. It'll be fine. The problem is having the time to go back and fill in those gaps. The teachers can do that. I'm going to look at a concept that I've been teaching, this past couple of weeks. It was adding and subtracting integers. And so they're doing positive and negative numbers, and they're hopping all over the number line, which is great. I also happen to be the bilingual teacher for the 6th grade math department. And so my students struggle with the reading part of that as well. So that gap that was created by the state of Texas standards changing, now it's even bigger. But I'm having to spend a couple more days on things just to really, really get it. And then you're not meeting assessment deadlines. And then when you go ahead and give the test, we're not ready for it, but I'll give it, the kid gets the test. And they're crying. And then the parent's calling you saying, why didn't you teach it? I'm saying I did, or I'm trying, or I still am. And then you're stuck in this in-between area as a teacher where the district wants these tests on this day. And then the kids aren't ready for it, not because you're not teaching it, but maybe this guy is dyslexic.
And these are benchmark tests.
They're benchmark tests. They're, classroom tests. They're, unfortunately, in 8th grade, a totally different matter. But those are kids coming off of an entire career of C-scope learning where they pretty much didn't learn math. So now let's add a new change in rigor. So now let's really test over something they hadn't learned, and add the facts that they didn't get before. These 8th graders this year, which I also have one, it's killing them, quite literally, in Smithville ISD. And it's not going to go away if we don't help the kids. I know you've heard a lot about staff development. I know you, and there is a place there. But these kids don't understand that. And I've been told that the gaps that y'all were discussing, common TEKS, I think is what the word was. I hadn't heard that word before, but I understand what it means, the gaps. I heard that our accountability for a district or a teacher or whatever is going to be based on those gaps and improvement, which is great, because when I get the test score someday and somebody decides what passing and failing is, I can look at it and I can tell those kids, or actually their 7th grade teacher can tell them on my behalf, that you didn't pass, but you improved. So I know as a teacher my kids improved, and my district got credit for that. My district knows that, you know, the kids improved, and we got kudos for that. What the kid knows is that they failed it. What the parents know is that their kids come home crying because they failed it. And you can pat them on the back and pat them on the head and give them a hug and tell them, but you improved so much, baby. A win is a win. A fail is a fail in the minds of the child and the parents, because the parents are not in there every day understanding how it's changed. You can tell them it's changed. They don't really get that, and they really shouldn't. They're in the business of running a household. They're in the business of making money and feeding their kids and getting them soccer practice and doing homework with them. They're not in the business of knowing what we know. That is our job. But you've almost made it impossible to where we're force-feeding such horrible things, and we're having to go at such a breakneck speed that the kid who really doesn't get it, that we're supposed to differentiate for, we quite literally can't differentiate and still fit it all in.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, as well as is that early in some of our testimony that some school districts running started just by getting ahead 2 years back, start filling in those gaps way back, but your school district did not do that.
No, I'm not saying that. We actually did.
Yeah.
The teachers were well informed of what was coming up. We're like, oh, whoa, okay, I better check out how to do that.
No, but in terms of their actual students, you know, going ahead and adding some things to what they were doing, you're telling me that didn't happen.
I'm telling you that it happened on a good faith basis. They were very well informed and say, look, guys, after your STAR test is over, can you really try and instead of doing this or that, or instead of remediating, would you go in there and try to pre-teach something, you know, for the next year? We're like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And we tried to, and in certain grade levels that worked, and up until recently, the 3rd grade was also in the same picture as the 5th grade, where that didn't happen because they had a 3-test thing. In 5th grade, I know that they wanted to do that, but they couldn't. They had so many kids that couldn't pass it the first time that they were remediating 5th grade still, and then remediating 5th grade again still. So 6th grade has that, you know, to contend with. And it may just be my district. I can only speak as a teacher. I've taught 3rd grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade. 6th grade is the first time I've ever been a bilingual teacher. And I was a 5th grade teacher for 11 years, and I embraced that challenge of STAR. I'm really good at getting those needy kids and helping them up and getting most of them to pass. When there is a consistent thing that I know what the outcome is, I can tell the kids what the outcome is, and to just throw this at them and they don't know, they don't get it, they don't understand, and they're real human beings that have feelings, and teachers are trying to help them. And it's just created an obstacle that's almost insurmountable.
And then you're a parent in Smithville, teacher in Bastrop.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
All I can say, it's painful to hear this story, okay? And I hurt for you, okay? How are we going to solve this? Do you have any major suggestion? I mean, we're willing to do whatever we can here on the board, okay? And maybe we've got the capability with our staff to step back and come at it in a way that we can prevent these kids from failing or committing suicide. Do you have any suggestion on what would be the first thing for you want the state board to do?
Well, let me clarify and say I'm not saying that they committed suicide because of tests. That's not at all what I'm saying. There are other issues that come with that, and they're horrible. I can just say it's one little piece of the puzzle of making a child feel bad. That's just one little part. Maybe somebody said something to them. Middle school is horrible for things like that, as you probably know. We need a way to support the children. I wish I knew what it was. I feel like the way my class day is structured is very good, but I have a little bit of leniency because I am the bilingual teacher. In the bilingual program, you can have a little extra time on things, and I'm not ever quite on the same pace as everybody else because of my population of students, and I feel very free to make those good decisions. Not everybody has that freedom. My district has been super good about trying to source out, information, say, what can we do? We got to get this and we got to get that. And I have a lot of resources. Some of them I paid for myself. Some of them other teachers have paid for and shared. Some of them my principal is constantly looking for us. And in faculty meetings, they're always saying, love your math teachers, guys. They're feeling it this year. They know, they get it, and there's support. But I feel like I don't need the support as much as the kids do. And they need to come to me with some background. They need to come up to the higher grade levels and actually know what 4 times 4 is. That can't be skipped. It just can't be skipped.
And I think we talked about delaying and doing more training and that kind of thing. Does that sound like something that...
A delay would be good just to let these kiddos get caught up and take some of the pressure off of them.
Mm-hmm.
The accountability, if it weren't such a big deal to the kids, because everything is the STAR test, and when they find out they don't pass it, well, their whole everything just went crashing around them. To us, it's a different level because we're more mature. We can handle those things. So the accountability should somehow be separated for the kids and the teachers in the districts. The kids need to feel empowered to learn this stuff, and they need to not be afraid to go to school and learn it. They don't want to sit down and go, I'm going to prove to my teacher how great I am, and I'm going to pass this test because I don't want to get kicked off the volleyball team. And then they take this test that looks like what the one that the mom passed out. That's not, third graders don't think that way. It's, you want to test perimeter. Okay, good. And then you throw decimals in there. When we haven't taught adding and subtracting decimals yet, you are testing perimeter, absolutely, but there's a disconnect in how it's tested, and it doesn't match. It doesn't match with other subject areas like science. So science teachers are teaching something about volume, and we haven't even gotten to measurement yet in math, so there's a connect across the curriculum. There are several disconnections, I don't know, but ultimately, it would be just really nice if we could just kind of take a deep breath, settle all these kids down, somehow find a way to fill in the gaps. I don't exactly know how it is because the gaps are so big. My specialty was filling in gaps. For 15 years, I've been filling in gaps as a remediation teacher. That's my whole bread and butter. Now the gaps are more like the Grand Canyon. And it takes a lot to fill that. And I'm asking, I don't know what jurisdiction that you really have, but I'm very grateful that you allow people to come and testify. And I'm very grateful that you allow parents, because they have a different perspective when they see the emotional aspect from the kids. I'm also glad that you listen to teachers, because we have a very different perspective too, because we can get trained to death. But when you walk into the classroom and your kids are crying because they still don't understand it, because tomorrow you teach a brand new lesson and it's even more rigorous, and you don't have time to go back for that. I'm sorry, I can't help you, and I need to deal with you, and you won't sit down, and you're not here, and you've been absent, and all those things compile to really harm children. And I think that the TEKS, maybe if they were slowly implemented, and I don't know if there's a way to go and retroactively slow it down a little bit so that when they do get to 6th grade, they're actually prepared for 6th grade, but it can't include missing multiplication. Everything in higher mathematics is based on your knowledge and recall of multiplication from factoring and algebra, and I mean, you can't skip that. But something's got to give,
right.
And I don't want you to walk away thinking that the test did that to the children. It didn't. But I do know that they feel pressure, because I have a very high achieving 8th grader and a very high achieving 5th grader, and they're scared to death to disappoint me, because I'm a teacher probably. They're scared to death to disappoint their teachers because they love them and they're trying hard, and they're scared of being labeled a failure. for something that's not their fault. They go to school every day. They've had perfect attendance for years, and they're good kids, never in trouble. They come home, and if they don't get it, my 8th grader is not particularly great in math, and I can help her with that. And they're in softball and all the typical things that kids want to do for an outlet and a release physically that they don't get during the day because we have to teach so much. They don't get a physical outlet as much or a social outlet. And they're scared to death all the time. They really are, emotionally. And teachers are, of course, scared because we get judged based on this information. But, well, I mean, we get judged. That's the job. The problem is that can lead to fear in the kids when the teacher's like, why can't you just get this? I have to move on. And you feel like this, and then the kid feels like this, and they go home and the moms feel like this, and it just leads to this. And we need a lot of togetherness. We need help and we need support, and we don't need to be combative. But the TEKS have led to a combative situation, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Monica, do we have any options for slowing anything down?
The challenge with the implementation is that you're hearing that different districts are in different places. So any change at this point is going to have some impact as far as the implementation. The other issue is that you did adopt new instructional materials to align to the new standards. So there's the potential to create other impacts in changing course at this point now that implementation has begun.
So, I understand too now the assessment is also tied somewhat to some federal things. Is that correct? Are there some federal implications?
So there are federal requirements for assessment and accountability, and I'm probably not the best person to get into the details of that.